Well, we know where in the world Mark Willie is today, but we're not going to share just quite yet. But if you know, you know, folks. If you know, you know. The goose is loose. Sean, you made it.
I did. I forgot my hat, so I had to make one.
Yeah. Happy belated birthday, Sean.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate
Yeah.
it. Hope you guys had a good St. Patrick's Day.
Well, it is a few minutes past the hour, gentlemen. What do you think? Um, Leo's here. I think we should just start.
Yeah.
Let's dive into the slides.
Okay. Welcome to another exciting episode of BS&BEER Canada. Tonight, I am drinking a Old Highway. It's a local brewery. It is considered a strong beer at 5.7%. I'm not sure just how strong it is, but I do have a strong message before we get into our special guest from 475. If you didn't know, next month is the third anniversary of BS&BEER Canada. That'll be 3 years in a row. Exciting news, right, folks? And if you didn't already know, May 7th and 8th, BS&BEER Canada is having a symposium in the Halifax area. So hit the link in the website, check us out. If you're in the local area or you're willing to make the trip, join us. And over to you, Connor.
So it's on mute. I taught for 4 years on Zoom, but I can't figure it out. I'm Connor Malloy. I'm a designer, builder, and educator in Toronto, Ontario, and we're excited to have you all here. BS&BEER Canada is our monthly live conversation where builders, architects, and building science folks get together to talk about real buildings, real details, and what's actually working in the field. The goal here tonight is to share knowledge and help each other build better. I'll turn over to my other colleague closest to me, which is going to be Jeremiah.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jeremiah. I'm a builder and a learner in Southwest Ontario. I have a great affinity for building science and getting details right and learning all the time. And the panel that we have on today is really a catalyst for a lot of the development that I've had over the last number of years. So I'm really excited to hear what everyone has to say. And I'm a lightweight, so I'm drinking a zero Grolsch tonight. And I'll pass it over to Justin.
Good evening, everyone. Justin, I am a builder and renovator in Saskatchewan, a high performance enthusiast, and really just looking to bring back high performance building back to the prairies where it kind of all started. And really looking forward to hearing some of the folks from 475 tonight. We use a lot of their products in our builds. And we'll pass it along over to Sean.
Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, where you're at. Sean Santamore. Given the location that I'm at, I'm drinking a local. One second. They're Pacifico. So if you've ever been to this region of southern North America, then you would know where in the world I am. I may or not be still wearing my bathing suit, but sometimes, when you go from one location to another, I was able to, and I remember to wear my shirt. I forgot my hat, so it's an impromptu hat when you have a black hat with great stickers. So I did pack the right sticker. For those who don't know me, I'm Sean Santamore. I get to manage a really cool division with the Etro Construction focusing on retrofits. So I'm applying all the great knowledge I've learned from many of these colleagues and focusing on fixing old buildings to bring a lot of the high performance stuff we talk about to those buildings that need a lot of love. So that being said, I came late, so let me see if we have the one and only Mr. Mark Willie.
As your foreign correspondent with a PH, I would like to say my name is Mark Willie. In fact, I grew up on job sites and building supply houses. It's one of my passions today. Since I did that as a child, I believe in youth labor and I believe in teaching the youth and allowing the mentorship to begin a track again. So I'm an author that allows children to do that today. And really glad to see our friends from 475, all three of you, join this evening.
Perfect. Thanks, Mark. So as Aaron talked about at the top of the hour, if you enjoy these conversations, please do look up the Building Science Symposium happening in Dartmouth in May. You can go to BS&BEER Canada, look on Symposium. Tickets are still available. And it's a two-day great presentations. This is the first night we actually have 3 guests. Typically, BS&BEER Canada it's a 1-hour episode. We have 1 guest, pretty active presentation, and we've kind of flipped it tonight. We had reached out to the team at 475. All 3 of the representatives for Canada wanted to join, and it's going to be exciting talk. We've got Brenden David, Finaly Butler, and Aaron Waldt. We're going to have an active discussion around how they support teams, and we're going to talk a lot about CMHC's new pre-designs. But then we're going to turn this into a bit of a working meeting, so all of us can look at a plan set and go through how we as builders break down and collaborate together and work through details. So I'll turn it over to you, Brenden.
Awesome. Thanks, Connor. Okay, I'll get in the driver's seat here. All right. Hopefully everyone can see that all right. Thumbs up, yeah. Cool. Finaly will kind of start things off. So Finaly, why don't you go ahead?
For sure, yeah. Thanks, Brendan. Hey, everyone. I guess we'll get into a couple introductions. So we are the 475 team of Canada. There's 3 of us. Kind of get us started. What's the next slide looking like, Brendan? Yeah, so a bit about kind of what 475 offers. So the main thing that we'll usually be talking about is our air and vapor control. So from ProClima, from WRBs, interior smart vapor control membranes, high performance tapes for windows, kind of everything you can think of for that. We have a couple installations, hopefully coming soon this year. Smart Rock, which is Rockwool faced with Intello. Not out yet in Canada, but we can get into it later. Then yeah, high performance skylights, daylighting from Facro and Lamelux. We offer PHPP. And then on the ventilation side, we have the Brink HRV and ERV, and then the preconditioning geothermal unit, GHT. Yeah, so a little bit about kind of what we do during the monthly things too. Kind of like BS&BEER, we'll have shows throughout the month, kind of going through different building science topics. So here are a few ones that we did in 2025. We actually did this presentation, the CMHC catalog last month for our building blocks. So that's on YouTube as well. It'll get into it a bit more in depth than we're maybe going to do today because we're gonna do a bit more hands-on. But yeah, it's always good to look at that if you guys want to. And then, yeah, for introductions, so I'm the newest member to the team. I am based in Toronto, Ontario. I am the customer service representative for Canada. So I'll kind of cover all over. No territory to myself, but yeah, if you're calling into the main line, I'm probably going to be the first one you're talking to, and probably be on all of those email threads as well. So yeah, pass it over to Aaron.
Yeah, I'll quickly introduce myself as well. I'm fresh out of Guinness after St. Patrick's Day, but I'll grab a cider or something when we do the Q&A. I forgot about the beer part of BS&BEER. But yeah, I've been with 475 now for about 5 years now at this point. Used to live in Collingwood, and now for the past year and a half, I've been in Windsor, and I'm still operating in the same region. So Ontario, Quebec, and the Maritimes.
Nice. Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, my name's Brenden David. I'm the product consultant for Western Canada, so essentially Manitoba and West. And background is a little bit more on the building science side, so I don't pretend to be able to swing the hammer as well as a lot of the folks here, but certainly like to hear about the theory and help people learn about some of the technical side. So yeah, thanks for joining us. And without further ado, I should forget here. So I'm having a local Japanese ale. It's called Okami Katsu from a brewery in Calgary called Old Beautiful. Actually burnt down, but they are still doing small batches, like working with some of the other local brewers. So it's a good one. And a little bit more of the formal part here, or the stuffy part, but I'll do a bit of a background on the CMHC. We're going to review the goals of the newly released housing design catalog. And then, the focus, of course, for us will be the building envelope of those designs. And we'll, after that, hand over to Connor. We'll start to go through a walkthrough and actually download one of the designs. And at that point, yeah, the idea is to open dialogue and get some people's opinions, feedback, first impressions, that type of thing. So, definitely should have time to get technical, discussing maybe a couple of the key details, materials and assemblies that are included in the catalog. I'll say CMHC a bunch. That stands for the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. So the CMHC is a crown corporation, and its roots are in providing low-cost housing solutions to World War II workers and veterans. Broadly speaking, their mandate is to deliver the National Housing Act. In practice, this means providing financing, providing independent research and knowledge resources, as well as delivering housing programs. So that's both directly, like, they've built and operated buildings in the past, but of late it's a lot more indirectly. So things like this housing design catalog. Most Canadians would know the CMHC for their mortgage and default insurance program. So that was introduced in the 50s, still very popular today. That really helped to expand home ownership to more Canadians. Another popular program over the last few years, especially with developers and builders, was the MLI Select program. So that offered really competitive financing for multi-unit residential builds, again, on that smaller scale. And it was based on a point system for accessibility, efficiency, and affordability. Yeah, interestingly, the CMHC is actually the largest crown corporation in Canada, which makes sense when you step back, but it's just so ubiquitous you kind of lose sight of that sometimes. And for our American friends joining, I see a couple. There's no direct counterpart to this CMHC in the US, but this scope could certainly fall under the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or like a state level housing authority. I'm going to step on my soapbox for a few minutes, a few seconds, I should say. So a lot of bad news going on right now, and a lot of our media is definitely designed around outrage and not information, and we can miss or discredit, governments, large organizations when they actually are taking steps in the right direction and doing some good work. It seems like the design catalog rollout has actually been kind of quiet, especially given the potential positive impact it could have. So yeah, by and large, we think it's a good thing. The key here is, how are those buildings going to be built, which is why we're here. And, if they're just thrown up quickly, no focus on performance, it could become a big liability. But, if we do this well, it could really help lots of folks. So yeah, moving on to the actual design catalog now, getting off my soapbox. But what's this program actually trying to achieve? Here's a look at the landing page, and it kind of sums it up well, right? So simply put, it's ready to use standardized designs to help build more homes faster. This CMHC successfully used the same approach of standardized designs in the past, and they're really just now modernizing that approach for today's housing challenges. So yeah, for over 30 years, they published catalogs for builders to use, which included classics like the 1.5-story Victory Home model shown on the left. If you're in a region that has a lot of older homes, an interesting way that you could tell if yours was a catalog build would be, if you have your permits from days gone by, it won't list an architect or something. It'll just say plan pattern book. And yeah, this wasn't just in Canada. In the US, the private sector was very influential. So that certainly permeated here. Well known are the catalog homes from Sears and Aladdin. And, yes, you could buy that home design, all the materials ready cut, but that was actually their top tier, right? The entry point was design packages similar to something like this. And yeah, this type of standardized design is very common in the form of these pattern books. So yeah, the Eaton's catalog shown in the center is an example. On the right is Sears, and you can see that distinction that they make: modern homes and building plans. Mind you, energy performance wasn't a major consideration yet. Those packages, they didn't have any insulation, right? You maybe stuffed your walls with some newspaper. And, of course, from the early 1900s to mid-century, like that focus was on modest single-family dwellings, whereas the new housing design catalog, it's really centered around gentle density, often referred to as the missing middle. So think duplex, fourplex, sixplex, accessory dwelling units, right? ADUs. And the idea here is to better utilize the existing infrastructure and expand housing access in established communities. So, these are the type of projects we're talking about. On the left is an eightplex in Calgary. They used an Adhero 3000 self-adhered membrane, an exterior insulation, uh, poking a lot of holes there. So the self-adhered is a little better for that because that project was actually a net zero infill. And then on the right is a ADU, in that case, like a two-story high-performance backyard suite, and they kept the original heritage building in the front. So that ADU was kind of interesting because it was built from prefabricated panels. And yeah, you can see the Menta 1000 membrane and then the integrated rain screen strapping. So erected really quickly and it was ready to be clad right away. Prefab isn't like officially part of this catalog or the stream, but it could definitely be a parallel stream. So that'll be interesting to see maybe what happens there. Yeah, 475, definitely have a lot of experience in these type of projects across the country, making them high performance. So whether that's that first step towards improved air tightness or all the way to passive house and net zero, that's definitely a bit of a less focus, that top tier in this initial catalog, but hopefully kind of goes through some improvements, iterations. So yeah, going back to the design catalog, the CMHC says that the catalog is based around regional designs for local needs. And so you will see some differences across the provinces. But that said, all designs were intended to prioritize energy efficiency, accessibility, and livability. So it was developed by local architects and engineers to comply with regional codes. And that's a good time to mention that yeah, for our architect and designer friends joining, this doesn't remove them from the project. Developers still need architects and engineers on board for review and final sign off, and of course their expertise on material selection, project coordination, etc. So yeah, the CMHC, they say that the designs exceed the minimum code require. They targeted the designs to exceed minimum code requirements for the National Building Code 2020 Tier 3, or if you're in BC, that's a little bit higher energy step code 4. So that leads to enhanced comfort, lower operating costs, and then if of course the performance can be further upgraded. Yeah, based on our review, like we actually felt this was a good starting point. For instance, with the energy models for all the regions outside BC, they assumed an envelope with at least 2.5 air exchanges per hour at 50 pascals, and then in BC it was 1.5. So not the highest, but it's still a very reasonable, achievable starting point. Yeah, and overall, we're happy to see that approach, right? And looking through the detail packages 475, like we realized a lot of the details look familiar to us in the high performance space. And in fact, yeah, many match our smart enclosure ebooks and our case study blogs. But yeah, some of the detailing might be new for folks coming from conventional or code level construction, where we will see more folks kind of leaning on these pre-designs. And I think a lot of folks today on the call, right? That's where we can be a great support to help take these details from the page to the site. And we'll definitely try to get into that a little bit. So yeah, this is an example of a fourplex design for the Maritimes. And there's actually 2 different designs available for most of the building types in each region. So yeah, there's actually a lot of design diversity to suit your needs and site conditions. This one's a 6plex in Saskatchewan and Manitoba. You can kind of see there, Connor will walk through in a minute here, but you just kind of select a technical package or summary package, and you can download the design package. It's ready to go. That simple. So yeah, overall, like benefits of the program, right? Like right out of the gate, a developer can realize significant savings in design costs, right? Starting something like this from scratch, like a full design package, could cost anywhere from, 10K to 30,000 plus, depending on complexity. Again, you still need some professional involvement, but with a much lower reduced scope. So there's room for architects to kind of specialize in these designs too, right? To figure out what's worked, what's not, and then kind of offer that, or work with builders on kind of a repeat to help further drive that down. And a lot of the municipalities have actually already signed on to fast track the approval process for these designs. So, reducing permitting and holding costs, certainly builders love that. Yeah, and we're, again, in 475, we're happy to see that performance was included, but it's more of a starting point. The targets are very much achievable, and there's, certainly room to improve. Yeah, the design catalog relied on expertise from local professionals, and built well, it should lead to more durable and efficient building. So these are buildings that are going to be around for 100 plus years, whether you're building one, or investing in one, or buying a home to live in. We want to make sure we're getting the envelope right, because it's our only shot at that. Yeah, ultimately, right, the hope is that this all accumulates to create more housing and more housing access. So I'll hand it off to Aaron to kind of talk a little bit about one of the details, and then go to Connor.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, so thanks, Brenden. Yeah, it's always really cool to hear kind of the historical piece around this and how this works, and how it's one of the many solutions that will hopefully fix this housing crisis that we have in Canada. And this slide, it's just really there to provide kind of a sneak peek in terms of what we're going to be diving into in detail. So I won't take too long talking about this, but this was the wall assembly. This was the part of these pre-approved plans that really perked my interest when I first saw them. I remember just getting that notification on LinkedIn that the CMHC design catalog was available for everybody to take a look at. And, pretty much as soon as I saw that, I knew that we've been working on it for a long time, so I wanted to check it out. So yeah, naturally I went right to the plans for Ontario and Quebec. And yeah, I must say I was pretty impressed with a lot of the, these modern, let's call them building science principles that are getting applied to these wall and roof assemblies. So, for one thing, you can see nice rain screen on the very outside, continuous insulation, that thick fluffy sweater on the outside, air barrier on the outside that's vapor permeable, but then particularly on the inside, the smart vapor control barrier, which, 475 is something we do know quite a bit about at this point. And yeah, it was just really cool to see these on the wall and the roof assemblies for Ontario and Quebec, and then also that prioritization of the overall air tightness of the building. I was trying to get that 2.5 for provinces other than BC, because yeah, BC, they've got that step code there, so they're a couple steps ahead of us in that respect. But yeah, it's cool to see that a lot of these more modern building science practices are being applied to these fourplexes, sixplexes, and townhouses, to ensure that they're more durable, healthy, and essentially better buildings. So yeah, do we want to dive into a plan set right now, Connor, and just take a look, figure out how to download one of these plans and then take a closer look?
Why don't we pull up, we can pull up the website to show people how to navigate through the different provinces. And then I can pull up one of the actual downloaded plan sets. So I can share my screen here. Okay, you see that?
Yep.
Perfect. So yeah, I was like you, when I first heard about this, I was really excited to go to the plans. And I live in Ontario, so we checked out Ontario. We're actually teaching using the plan sets in the college this semester. They're very accessible, complete plans. And the fact that we're all from across the country today, the fact that you can go into search by two types. You can search by both building type and formation. So duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes. And as Brenden mentioned, you notice that there's no single family here. And this is the focus of really what the pre-design catalog is here for, is to help people look at that missing middle and gentle density and helping to be efficient with infill and building different types of housing formations. So you can search by type and also search by province. So if we start with just Ontario in the middle, you'll see that there are 2 types of accessory dwelling units, as Brenden talked about. There are 2 fourplexes. There's a 6-plex, a stacked townhouse version 1, a stacked townhouse version 2. And these are nice because if you understand your community zoning permissions and different setbacks, even lot coverage, some of the stacked towns are skinnier than others, and it fits the average lot sizes based on your province or municipality. And when you go into these packages, there's both kind of a summary package, which is a simplified plan set, communicates types of spaces, basics of mechanicals. And then what we're going to look at right now as a group all here together is the technical package. So technical package, you simply click on technical, click download package, and it's as simple as coming down and filling in your name, where you live, what language, and you click download, right? Doesn't send you an email, doesn't do any of that, which is really quite nice. And then in that technical package, we'll go to the drawings. You get models for HOT 2000, you get some of the energy modeling, you get a structural set, an architectural set. It's really quite comprehensive. So let's pull open one right now. Okay, is that coming through as well?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, amazing. So let's give people an overview and they'll talk about it as a group here. So I think what's nice is if you haven't, growing up, I didn't really work with the most comprehensive sets of drawings. Often we have permit sets, we have construction sets. This set by CMHC really much aligns with a construction set. It has details and assembly details, has a structural plan. It has MEP plan and mechanicals. So for a downloadable set, really quite complete. So this is a fourplex. We have basic building data on the main page. Second page, as Aaron mentioned, we have a great assembly schedules. So we can notice if we go into wall assemblies, there are 3 wall types on this building. And some of them are here. So if you have a larger setback, you can use the combustible assembly. If you have a smaller setback or preference for metal cladding, different types of materials, you can work with the non-combustible assemblies. And I think what Aaron talked about, which is quite nice, this is part of the discussion here tonight, is you'll notice that the guide doesn't reference products or brands, but it mentions properties. So we have a smart vapor retarder versus a vapor barrier. On the exterior, we have a air barrier and vapor permeable membrane instead of just saying WRB. So it's giving us some indications for this drawing set of what some of these properties might be, and even down to if you sleuth and look at the insulation requirements from the R values, you get a sense of what product that might be. But again, it's not brand specific. So that's quite nice. And why I think the team's here today, because when you have questions about what might be appropriate, we want to reach out to people like 475 and the representatives and talk to them about it. And as you skip down to, so windows and door schedules is some of the details and the sections. So I find the way I learn about a plan set is I skip down to the building sections and get a sense of how the enclosure is being constructed. In most of the assemblies, you'll notice that we have an enclosure that really maps the massing. So we have a lot of vaulted roof assemblies. We have a lot of exterior air control, exterior insulation, and over roofs, things that might be new to certain members of this group here tonight. And if we go backwards, we'll kind of leave on this page for a while. We go back to the building sections and the details. Again, missing in most plan sets. Go back here to page 004. Let's look at the roof here. We'll leave it here for a second.
Monopoly.
Yeah. I was really impressed when I saw this because it
Yeah,
doesn't
I was too. Yeah.
most of what we see. So maybe just get some comments here. When you look at this from your 475's perspective, were you excited to see detailing like this in a downloadable catalog?
I would say, yeah, for sure. It was really cool to see. The one thing that always bothers me about this image in particular is the insulation looks like there's kind of like an air gap on the inside. That's the one thing that I've noticed is like consistent in the drawing sets that I don't really know what that's all about. So yeah, maybe we could talk about that. Maybe it's just a typo or something. But yeah, I mean, this was one of the details that we talked about at length in the 475 building blocks presentation where we did, where I was impressed to see kind of this Monopoly framing Lego house detail where the rafter tails are effectively cut off and you've got kind of this, more modern kind of eveless, I guess, um, design. So yeah, I mean, this helps out with a lot of things. Primarily helps out with maintaining continuity of all of your four control layers, right? So helps with maintaining continuity of that exterior air barrier, continuous insulation on the outside, and then water control as well. So I mean, it helps with simplicity in some ways too, because like you only need one type of membrane now for the very outside. So any questions that builders might have about that makes things really easy for us. And then, yeah, in terms of that continuous exterior insulation as well, can help with making sure that you've got good thermal properties on kind of that wall to roof connection. I was actually at the boots on the ground in Guelph, and they talked about how if you if you have a truss on your roof system that's not a heel truss, oftentimes it's very notorious that you don't have enough insulation right at the base of the truss, and that's a really sensitive area for the potential for mold growth or rot or things like that, just because it stays really, really cold. So yeah, by having this detail here like that, you kind of eliminate it as well because you've got continuous insulation wrapped all the way around.
Really?
I would like to point out how sexy those flashing details are. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Yep.
That is a repairable flashing detail. In 35 years, somebody can haul that window out, put a new window in, and not touch the exterior. A counter flashed head flashing on a plan set, that is almost unheard of.
Yeah, it's pretty dope.
And check out the sequencing too. They've actually gone into detail about overlapping the WRB in the scenario, like over that flashing tape. So it's good to see that they're also thinking about sequencing.
Very well thought out.
Yeah, let's start basic wall and pretend we're sitting around a kitchen table going through the plan set. Maybe we can talk about what's working well, but also maybe what concerns we have as a group around the plan set. I got some text messages from colleagues who have some concerns. Maybe we can talk this through. So when you look at this and we go through our priorities of water and then air and vapor and thermal, how do you feel like this plan set as a group is these details are managing water if this would be constructed as per plan? The thing that stands out to me is, at least for Ontario, none of the plan sets have basements. They're all slab on grade, and that does alleviate, well, finished space for basement, but it does have this elevated slab wall connection where we have this, all the wood is above grade by minimum 6 inches. And then we have
I think Sorry to interrupt, Connor, but I think we should be mindful that CMHC itself has a long history of frost protected foundations.
100%.
In fact, most of their case studies from, I, I might be off a little bit. I think the 50s are, cited in the code, cited by architects and engineers when we're talking about, you know, frost protected slabs, shallow foundations. So it kind of stands to reason that they would go with a slab on grade for a lot of their projects.
It's a good point. It's a good point. It definitely, like for us, it's something that we like to build. Um, I find it is a new, even though it's not new, it can be new to some builders to not build with foundations and full foundation walls for sure.
It would also really simplify like an infill process where you're not excavating, if you got a really narrow lot and you're building, one of these fourplexes, which aren't a huge footprint, but if you're trying to squeeze that between two properties and excavate down, 6 feet to normal foundation depth, that'd be a lot more of a challenge
Yeah.
or it could be a lot more of a challenge in some spots.
I think
And if the soil conditions are good, there is also a substantial cost savings from eliminating a basement.
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, I think we're all focused on the technical. The If anybody had run through the MLI Select program, there was three categories: affordability, efficiency, accessibility.
Hmm.
If you ask anybody who went through that program, built an infill, whether it was a sixplex or fourplex, whatever, how many points did you get for accessibility? Nobody did it, right? And so one of the main focuses was supposed to be accessibility from that program, and I think the feedback was it wasn't working very well. So when I saw some of this, I thought that, okay, I think part of this is also that, when you have slab on grade, you can lean to a lot more accessibility, where under the MLI Select program, that was kind of fallen by the wayside.
That's a really good point, Brendan. I had a colleague who was doing some MLI Select renovations in multiplex in Hamilton, and they were adding interior elevators to these single story bungalows to access the basement apartment.
Wow.
Back up and look at the complexity of having a shared entry door into an elevator shaft into a basement with an 8-foot ceiling is quite complicated. And if we can reduce that step at grade and grading from 0 at your street to 6 inches within a ramp is a really comfortable thing to landscape and landscape decks and entryways, then up 2-3 risers. The typical house is up 4 or 5 risers. And if your main floor is accessible or reasonably accessible, but you can't get into the home, then it's really not that accessible. So I think that's a really nice point.
This is something that we could potentially get into later, but I wonder where they're recommending to put like mechanical systems and stuff. That's all sort of slab on grade stuff. Do they kind of specify it in there, like where stuff is going, or what kind of mechanical systems to use?
I think they do.
Oh yeah.
What's cool about it? So we zoom to the first floor plan. So two things stand out before we move on to mechanicals. There are 2 main floor plans available for most of the plan sets. There is a more accessible main floor where they have larger, they've amended the bathroom design. There's full turning radiuses. Some of the interior doors are wider and they've adjusted the layout. And then there is a non-accessible main floor. But if we go down to the lower pages, there are some MEP layouts. We'll skip past the structural set and down here to MEP. So it offers 4 types of systems. So there's a couple gas combi boilers and gas furnaces. There's an air to water system and an air to air. There we go. So if we go to, this is plumbing electrical. Here's mechanical ground floor. So on the left, so this is a demising wall, a firewall between two units here, right down the middle. On the left, we have a 2-bedroom unit, kitchen, 1 bathroom. And on the right, it's essentially a mirror, kind of a mirrored unit. So also 2 bedrooms, laundry, kitchen, bath.
It looks like they essentially have a mechanical closet, and the ductwork must be in the floor system above, which that could be a little bit challenging, I suspect, from like a fire separation standpoint sometimes. But I imagine on an or a section that probably is highlighted a little bit more.
Yeah, like it looks in most cases, they're showing an outdoor condenser for if this is a ducted heat pump for the indoor unit. And it uses, if you look at supply, where's the ERV?
I think you got it right there, yeah.
Yeah, so ERV is supplying into the air handler, and that's distributing to the bedrooms. They're then returning with undercuts on the doors to a main wall return in the main, in that, I guess, into that closet. And then they're exhausting the ERV from the bathroom.
Looks like it.
From the bathroom. And then the dryer has the option of a conventional exhaust. And then for plumbing, there's also a plumbing set. When we go to the
Pretty,
system, yeah, it's cool though, right?
it's really thorough. Like
Go to the
it's a pretty
set.
advanced set for what it is.
Like, I don't know about you, but when we get a plan set conventionally, there's a room that says mechanical or utility, and there's a square and it says an F on it. And I think it's the same symbol as as the fridge, just dragged into the room, right?
This is more advanced than the last 3 houses that we've had that tested below 0.6. So yeah, this is great for, people that are trying to build better and trying to build a little faster. And for a builder or somebody who cares, if you give them the details for a head start, this is it.
Well, I think this like lowers the barrier to entry, or I guess raises the barrier to entry a little bit for even for designers who are maybe not totally familiar with some advanced enclosure details to be able to review these thoroughly too and kind of have these resources. Um, I think that's pretty good.
I'm going to be the bad guy right now, and I'm going to say this now changes the bar of or the level of expectation when I ask for a plan set from a designer or an architect. Like, here's what I can get for free. So
Yeah.
I think it's great that way because it does show you what when you don't get this. Let's talk about what happens if you don't get this. You get a permit set which satisfies the building department. It often is not, you're not able to construct from it. So when you are not offered this level of detail with at least duct runs and that there's undercuts, and maybe after you go through the details, they size the undercuts. That tells you that if you're missing those on the plans that you're building from, those are conversations you need to have with your clients or with the designer architect, and also estimate that time when you're estimating the project to carry, 60, 80 hours of meetings to noodle out all of these details. Because I think that's often, at least when I was younger, just I missed the cost of those conversations when they weren't written down. So having a plan set that's complete is wonderful. Also we go back to, we're kind of enclosure nerds here, but if we go back to the enclosure, to understand the sequence of this, I think is really quite great because we have colors, we have some affordance that these are different materials and layers. So there's a lot of pages here to scroll. Let's go back. Do you want to talk about any part of the enclosure in particular? Foundation or roof or windows or doors? Anything you want to talk about as a group?
I was going to mention the floor to floor, because that's a detail that, again, like the high performance world, we'll see more frequently that you have it shown, continuous. In this conventional world that some of these builders might be coming from, yeah, I think they're going to look to, BS&BEER Canada 475 to actually be like, oh, how do I do this? Because they probably have not seen this.
No, I would say
Continuity at transitions.
So let's break this one down because we all know we can't frame the building and then thread this green thing around. So if we do a markup here, so maybe we assume that we're going to platform frame here. Can we talk through just a sequence of events of how you would make, because I know this detail is really, really nicely described in some of your books you have on the 475 side. If we do step one, like in red, let's assume that we have our main floor is frame. So we stand up our main floor. What's the next thing we'd want the builder to do to make this sequence happen?
I'll just quickly note, like, increasingly, we're seeing builders actually use a self-adhered membrane here, like a self-adhered from the wall to roof connection on the inside or even around this, just because, yeah, I've heard it called belt wrapping, where you kind of have this membrane that goes around the rim joist. Floppy bits, yeah, the famous floppy bits. And increasingly as there's this kind of expectation that this is going to be part of your overall airtight assembly, you want to have something that's actually going to hold up to when it gets kind of beaten up. And it's found that, self-adhereds do much better than like a mechanically fastened membrane, just because, they're probably just tacked or stapled on. They are floppy bits, they are getting flapped around in the wind and stuff like that. And then ultimately as well, like, one thing that we do see too is, a lot of our membranes are just 5-footers and 10-footers, and people want like an 18-incher or something like that. So, this is where we'll say, you can cut down one of our self-adhereds if you want to have something that you absolutely know is going to be more durable, or, Tyvek comes in so many different widths. And here, if you wanted something to tie into, you could do that. And we do see that. We do see that on quite a few builds.
So
because go ahead.
Would you take your 5-foot roll, cut that in half so you have 30 inches?
Yep.
Staple it down so that it's just draped over. Oops. And then set your rim joist. And then
I would offer that you sandwich it between that double top plate.
I would agree.
It is so much more durable on site.
Yeah.
Less chance of it being damaged. From a carpenter's perspective, yes, it's important to remember at that key moment in time. But from a buildability perspective, so much easier, less worries about damage, less repairs to the floppy bit.
Yeah.
So we stand up that wall, put that on top, and then add your second plate.
Yep. Are they indicating that is it purple line is the primary air barrier, air control?
Yes.
Outboard of the sheathing?
Yes.
In that case, I don't really understand why the green line needs to actually go around the rim joist if it's not really being asked to be an air barrier at that point anymore, and they're calling out a little bit of closed cell spray foam in that joist cavity, your vapor control is intact up to the spray foam and then down to the spray foam from the second floor. To me, that detail going around the floor system overcomplicates what I think is kind of unnecessary, unless I'm missing something on there.
I think that makes sense. I don't know. I think there's a point to that for sure.
I've seen
There,
this. I've seen that detail like shown
Yeah.
on cross sections before of
Yeah.
using house wrap or something to tie to poly on the inside, but that's when the
Yeah.
poly is assumed to be the primary air control, and I get it. All that's a really difficult detail to actually pull off
Yeah.
in the field, especially with floppy house wrap. Um, and
Totally.
we have moved away from any kind of detail like that and just stuck to the outside.
Yeah.
But I wonder when they're calling out an exterior air barrier, then probably could avoid that step a little bit.
Let's do what we do in the field. We go
I
to mindset and just confirm.
I don't disagree with you, Jeremiah. I just look at it as belt and suspenders. And
Sure.
I actually haven't found it that difficult to pull off. Uh, and I doubt that you would too, where you do a lot of stuff in house.
Yeah.
I think you would find that once you came up with a system, that it would be really no more work to speak of.
That's probably you're probably not wrong about that. It just seems to me that you don't because you'd be able to eat like from a vapor, if that is what it's there for as vapor control from the interior, having it go around the outside of the framing to maintain continuity. Technically, that I feel like that closed cell would do a pretty good job right there, bridging that gap between the bottom of the subfloor.
I agree, but I always look at it as not vapor, but as like air control 2.0.
Yeah, yeah,
And if I've missed something on the outside, this is my last chance,
yep,
right?
yep,
And that's my perspective, but
yep.
you're not wrong. I see your point. And if you're looking at doing something on a really budget friendly, or really like trying to shave nickels out of a project, yeah, that would save a couple dollars.
Yep.
But if you were doing a custom I don't think it would really amount to much.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, the way I interpreted that one was so to your point, Jeremiah, that they were like, okay, this is how it's probably be doing or probably being done right now in the field to a certain extent. And so kind of bridging that gap to where I think they ultimately want it to go, which is, if you do have the sequencing there, that interior condition or insulation can change over time or potentially separate,
Hmm.
if we have plan pattern type of builds that are over 100 years old now, right? We're building this now. Is that going to stay in place and be a proper vapor control layer for that whole lifespan of the building?
True. True.
So I think when I saw that, I kind of thought it as like a bridge, right? Like they were showing how it's kind of currently being done and thought of, but then also, you know, what's next.
And maybe protects against if somebody doesn't go all in on the 3 inches of exterior insulation, because that's a detail that's not commonly done, at least in our market. And with 3 inches on there, you're probably managing condensation pretty well on the outside. But if somebody drops that back to more code compliant, which would be like 1 inch on there, you may need that.
Mhm. I was actually, Connor, maybe going to share my screen again for one quick second because we had a example photo of this, where again, so like I think when our ebooks first came out, certainly it was this big floppy bit example. Um, but certainly for myself, I don't pretend to be builder extraordinaire. So, we learn from what some of the crews on site are doing, and this is kind of more what um, Aaron Waldt was discussing, where we're kind of seeing it being like taped in three pieces. Because the other thing too is with that one, oftentimes I think you can stand it up with the sheething on,
Yeah.
right? Which was kind of one of the issues with the floppy bit where it would start getting in the way. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's adapting, it's changing. We're of course, always looking to see how it can be done better and who's doing it quicker. So
Yeah.
now that it's kind of getting more mass market, maybe there'll be a third iteration of people coming up with another way of approaching this. So
I recognize that middle picture.
that's right. Cool. I'll let you get back to it.
No, I think it's great. I think what it shows us is like all of us here have a different way of looking at what seems simple. It's where two walls meet a floor. We've all built, or at least been around it before. And you can see there is still a dialogue, even with a great plan set and smart people around the room. We have our own idea of how you would sequence those pieces, whether you'd use exterior air control and connect your vapor control interior through the sheathing or through other kinds of material, or use a self-adhered over the top plate, up the rim and back in. It does show you that when you have a great plan set, it isn't enough. You do need to be able to reach out to folks like yourself or to colleagues where they work through that buildability of how you do it on your site with, you know, with your team's ability and with what materials you have access to.
I think
And
it's
also,
important to note too, Connor, that there's a bunch of people on this Zoom here right now that have built very successful buildings. And that only adds to, you know, there's more than one way to get from A to B. We're all heading in the same direction. We just have a little different way of getting there. So, yeah.
100%.
yeah.
One
And then-
interesting one to look at too would be some of the party walls or fire separation ones. I know that can be a challenge. Love to hear more about that and people's thoughts on that. Walt, sorry, you say something?
Yeah, I'll just be really quick. I'll say that for that kind of floor transition detail, I mean, one of the things I recommend all the time, Connor, is what you did on your place, where you're kind of cutting out that plywood blocking and then integrating that to the subfloor using a fluid applied, and then tying that into, you know, your air vapor barrier on the inside. Comes in handy a lot for retrofits as well, but I've seen people do it on new builds. I recommended it on new builds, and people have absolutely loved that detail. Even though it takes, let's say, a little bit extra time, it's nice because it's a clear separation between like what's your interior air barrier and what's your exterior. So I think that's why people like that idea.
I think so, right? If you look at that plan set, you have clients who have chemical sensitivities, or in certain sections you're not able to use 2-pound foam in that header. Knowing there are some foam-free options that are available to you, that's good. And that's where this whole community based. I learned that detail from Sean. Sean did that cellulose-based header cavity, which I didn't know how to do, how to hold fluffy stuff up into a joist end. But to set plywood, basically cut plywood ends to fit in as we're framing was a super smart detail. And Sean's note, even to go out into the 5/8, Sean, that you use in your joist ends, so you can set it with a framing nailer. You're on mute, Sean.
Am I still on? Can you hear me? So just saying, yeah, the leftover waste. I mean, that's the biggest thing is instead of having to go to landfill, how can you create better products out of it? And we had various sizes of plywood, and so just fill them in there. It worked out great. And even too, when it comes to like other structural material, if you have cutoffs, just put them in there, fill it in. It works.
Well, they also spec 5/8 plywood, specifically plywood in the plans too. So it's like might as well use it if you got it, you know, in a way.
And I think they do that because again, when you're looking at nailing grain screening from the outside or heavier materials, that RDH came out with that rule that if it was 1/2 inch plywood, you need to hit like 90% of the studs. At 5/8, it's like 60 or 70%, and then 3/4 inch, it's now like 90%. So or sorry, 10%. It's the reverse. So the thicker the plywood, the less you got to worry about hitting studs, which is kind of a nice touch. So again,
So
just
just to
managing
confirm,
faster
guys, at
costs.
1/2 inch, you can actually do a 7 pound per square foot cladding. 3/8, you have to hit 90% of the studs. 1/2 inches in between. Oh, Mark's saying different. I think.
No, I'm saying never use 3/8.
Oh, okay. Never use 3/8. I agree with you on that. 5/8, I agree is better, but 1/2 inch, 7/16 will hold 7 pounds per square foot of just about any cladding.
Aaron,
Five
at
eighths,
that
I
range, are we
believe
just
you're.
talking about door skin? It's protection. It's not even plywood.
There we go.
Amazing. Well, maybe just open up to questions now. I think would thank the team for their time to explain, their background and in their knowledge of the catalog. And maybe Aaron, before we leave here, you can tell us about some of the ebooks you have available for builders to download based on your building systems. We looked mainly today at 2x4 or 2 by construction, but maybe you can highlight what else Force and Vibe can support builders with.
Yeah, 100%. I can do that really quickly. So I'm thinking that, yeah, at least some of you have taken a gander at these ebooks that we have on our website. And if you haven't, they are right there on the website available to download for free. And effectively, they are the Bible for building enclosure nerds for pretty much any wall assembly you could possibly want. So we've got a historic masonry ebook, we've got a 2x framing ebook, double stud ebook, pretty much whatever type of wall assembly you build or whatever type of wall assembly you can think of. We've got, yeah, these kind of 60 to 70 page books that dive into a lot of these details that are in a way kind of seen on these housing catalog plans, where we really talk about proper flashing details around windows and proper assembly for walls and roofs and things like that. So definitely take a look at those. They're useful for builders and architects, but our senior product consultant in Asheville, North Carolina, Nick, he's been a carpenter for years and years and years, and we're utilizing him a lot more to actually come out with a lot more builder focused training and builder focused blog posts as well. So you'll notice that a lot of the blog posts that we've brought out in the last few months or even the last year have been really kind of builder focused, just to answer those questions that we get all the time. I would say, I kind of speak for Brenden and Finaly as well, but we get a lot of questions, for instance, about windows, like how do you properly tape around the window? Just because it's kind of well understood that, yeah, this is a point in a building where leaks can definitely happen if you're not careful. So we've got a bunch of blog posts now that really well illustrate what you can do with the tapes around windows. And I mean, yeah, I find that construction details, especially details that builders want to know more about, are they're best communicated visually. So a lot of these newer blog posts that we have, they're directly linked to like our Instagram channel, where you can get specific posts that we've maybe done a couple years ago, or maybe they're just ones that we've done historically. We've got direct links to those posts now in these blog posts, and then pretty much all of our best sort of stock images and photos from actually being on site kind of nested in these blog posts as well. And then the third thing is probably these building blocks. So these building blocks are also really kind of builder focused, trying to get architects to understand kind of the problems that builders face on site, but then also trying to further educate builders to ensure that they're using the materials that we have as efficiently as possible. Because that's one thing that we really try to communicate when we're talking about the ProClima system and kind of the best way to use the material. Because there's certainly a better way to use the material to save a lot of labor time, essentially.
Amazing. Thanks, Aaron.
Yep.
Yeah, I think maybe we should go around to take last questions and anyone from the group. Certainly, I value you and your team to be able to call and ask questions. It's the huge value of your offering, the fact that you can call you directly or email and get the fact that you see more buildings than I do and see more approaches and see what works and what doesn't work, I think is really a huge bonus for us all. So I appreciate you what you guys do.
Yeah, and I'll just say reach out to any of us at any time. So this is all of Team Canada showing up to BS&BEER Canada. So email any of us.
Can you just drop your emails in the chat here for anyone who is looking for Eastern Canada support is with Aaron, and then Western is with Brenden. And then of course you can go to 475 the website as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not seeing any direct questions in the chat, but if somebody is still with us and they have a question, now is your opportunity to ask it. We're into overtime, so it's perfect time to ask questions.
I've got one.
Yeah.
The Smart Rock. I'm curious to know well, I know that it's in the pipeline, but curious to know what thickness it's going to be available in, if it's just one thickness or if there are going to be more than one offering.
We're gonna have a bunch.
Oh,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. So I think in the US right now they got 2-inch, 3-inch, 4-inch, and 5-inch.
Okay.
It's cavity rock, so it's the proper like nominal thickness.
Right.
So yeah, I think they've got those four. But then there might be a degree of flexibility as well, because I know there is a 6-inch cavity rock as well.
Okay.
So yeah, if there's a project that needs enough of that stuff, then we can collaborate with Rockwell and make that stuff as well.
I think it'd be fantastic for crawl space application in particular, where there's a lot of challenges with that. If you're using foam, covering the foam and protecting it, but using a fibrous insulation and trying to figure out, how you're gonna have smart membrane on there as opposed to just poly like the blanket wrap.
Yeah.
So quite intrigued.
Yeah. So we're hopefully going to have it in stock in Canada for exactly those types of projects. So yeah, we'll help you out for that kind of stuff for sure.
Cool.
That's amazing. Do you know rough timeline, Aaron?
I wish. Yeah, I think the only smart rock samples, or the only smart rock we've got right now, are the samples I've got in the basement and in Canada. But yeah, they floated some numbers out there. I'm probably gonna say 2027 at some point. Maybe early 2027.
But you're going to bring those samples to the symposium in May, right? So we can all
You
touch
betcha.
them
Oh
and
yeah.
feel them.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll bring a couple. We'll bring
Okay.
a couple to stay over there too if you need. But yeah, it's really starting to pick up in the US, which is a good sign. I think Rockwell just wanted to see, there's this demand for this product, it's going to work kind of thing before unveiling it to different markets. So they are bringing it to the West very shortly, and then Canada's next. So yeah, I'm assuming it will be relatively imminent.
Yeah, the thought process was certainly around like kind of historic masonry, retrofits was sort of the genesis of some of it. But then, chatting with some other builders and kind of spitballing ideas, it's like if you can think of a double stud, but then with that framing, inboard, like something like that would make that type of detailing so much easier than like how do you, origami that membrane in unless you frame the wall, then stand it up with membrane already in place, which is quite difficult, but it can be done. But yeah, so it's kind of interesting to see like kind of where some of the ideas first started, and then some of the ideas that people already have on, oh, I could use it for that detail because it's always a pain. And if it was bonded, ready to go, like, so yeah, we're just as excited and waiting. you know.
I was already trying to make my own before I heard about it. I was playing around with various things, but I'm like, I just
Yeah,
gotta wreck the permeability. Whatever adhesive I use, but I can't. It's not the right thing, but I
yeah,
couldn't figure out. I was trying different things.
yeah. I'm hoping it comes out soon because I can't finish my basement without it. I need to. I framed up a wall like four inches from the exterior, and I need this smart rock to kind of throw in between. So I'm hoping it's sooner rather than later.
Nice.
Cool. Well, if there's no questions, we can wrap up and let people enjoy the evening. I want to make one call before we do say goodbyes in our last round is if anyone isn't interested in attending the symposium in May, if you go to bs&beercanada.ca, go to 2026 symposium, you can still buy tickets. Tickets are $225 for both days. That includes all the speakers, all the great presenters that are there. It's all of your meals and drinks are included in that ticket price. It's in Dartmouth. You can learn about the speakers. There's also a schedule for the presentations. Of course, we're very appreciative of the sponsors that make events like this happen and make education like this happen. And there's an event schedule here as well. So it's May 7th and 8th. We are looking to arrange some project tours in the afternoon of the 8th, which is always exciting. But again, go to bs&beercanada.ca and click on Symposium. That's it for me. Thanks, gentlemen, for coming. I really appreciate you. I'll turn it over to Mike.
I have one thing to share.
Go for it, Leo.
Camera. Does that work? Oh, sorry. Upside down. Oh, still upside down. Okay, that's not working. There we go.
I like it upside down. I like it upside down, Leo.
So fabricated, I think at JLC Live last year, my wallet. In case anyone is curious how durable it can be, this is Intello. That's been in my pocket for the past year.
Good tear resistance. I think we'll have to get a photo of that or something because we have a little internal thread of all the funny things we see people,
So
doing some stuff with.
I just figured you guys would appreciate that.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah. I've seen Adhero on a couple phones before too. So yeah, people definitely take advantage of the scraps.
Yeah.
I
seen
seem to
one.
remember a gentleman with an Intello suit.
The mental man, he's just left the chat.
Well, that's it.
All right, everybody.
If you're sweating, I think it's probably the excellent vapor control. So
yeah. Thank you very much, everybody, for hanging out with us and our good friends at 475. And we'll hope to see you all next month at BS&BEER Canada.
Amazing. Thanks, everybody.
Oh,
Thanks, everyone.
One final thing, the email, the BS&BEER Canada email said that the symposium is in June. The website says May. Just FYI.
Thank you, Leo. It is in May. We will.
Okay.
I appreciate that. We'll fix it up.
Thanks, Leo.
Have a good night.
Bye, everybody.
See ya.
Bye.
See ya. Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks, Brendan. Thanks, Finlay. Thanks, Aaron.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.